South African people, I know you, okay? For those who don't know, this is Attorney Sorrell Nassau, aka Dirty South History, and I am here telling the story of the region that I live in, which is the American South, the most blackest, the most racist, the most beautiful, the most friendly, the most interesting portion of America, in my opinion. But we're here to talk about South Africa and American blacks because something has been coming across my timeline that has been troubling me. And that is this ongoing insulting dialogue involving African Americans and South Africans. And my understanding is that this dialogue stems from the fact that the Zulu crew, which is part of the Mardi Gras celebration in New Orleans, the Zulu crew has used the name Zulu to celebrate Mardi Gras, dressed up in blackface and those ridiculous Afro wigs, okay? And I understand that you guys are offended by that stereotypical display of African Americans dressed up in blackface using the term Zulu crew, okay? Hell, even African Americans have an issue with blackface and looking like a gollywog. Google it, gollywog, but I don't have time to go into it, right? But you know what? That is part of what happens when you live in a free society. People can do what they want, even if it offends other people. And a lot of us, frankly, are uncomfortable with African Americans dressed up looking like that, okay? But if you dig beneath the surface, I think you'll have a greater appreciation of where all that stems from. Because the Zulu crew, as I said, is African American. And they, meaning African Americans, were not allowed to participate in the Mardi Gras celebration for much of its existence, okay? So the Zulu crew came along in the early 1900s, and black people, as I said, were not allowed to participate in this thing, were not allowed to wear masks during this Mardi Gras celebration or at any time in the American South during the Jim Crow era. And the Jim Crow era is what apartheid is based on. But let's get back to the story. The Zulu crew and the so-called Mardi Gras Indians were the only African American crews allowed to march eventually in this Mardi Gras celebration. And the only way that they could do that was to paint their faces, right? And the so-called Mardi Gras Indians, who are also African Americans, they would dress up in these real feathery costumes and paint their face in what they called war paint, right? And white people who ran that Mardi Gras parade allowed that because they felt like it was funny, it was mocking. But in reality, it's subversive, right? Because Native Americans fought these people tooth and nail, and they wouldn't allow African Americans to be African warriors, so they would dress up in the warriors that were allowed to participate, which would be Native Americans, right? Well, the Zulu crew took it one step further. They dressed up in these ridiculous uniforms, this blackface, these ridiculous Afro wigs, and took on what's known as a stereotypical look. But in reality, they used the name Zulu because they realized what the white people didn't, that the Zulus fought their colonial colonizers, right? Tooth and nail. And they are known for unaliving a lot of these people who invaded their country. So by the people that ran the Mardi Gras allowing the Zulus to name themselves Zulus, they did not know that that was a form of resistance, okay? So if you dig a little deeper, you'll see that there's a little history behind that story. Well, the question is, why am I showing you this statue, right? This monument, this thing that I'm showing you, which looks like a stone with a gate and barbed wire on it. Well, I'm gonna go around here and give you an idea of what we're dealing with here, okay? Because this is Piedmont Park. This is one of the most beautiful parks in the United States of America, and it's located in the heart of downtown Atlanta. All right, it's beautiful, right? And this monument, this thing that I'm showing you, is a part of it, right? And for much of this thing's existence, that gate was locked. In 1987, it was designed by a Mr. Hammond, and Hammond had this thing locked when it first came on the scene. All right, and the name of this monument is the Nelson Mandela Monument. Okay, and the reason that the thing is unlocked now is because Hammond said that this gate was to remain locked as long as Nelson Mandela was in prison. And Nelson Mandela was in prison for 27 years. And the reason why was because he fought for the rights and freedoms of South African people. It seems like this group of people who are existing today have forgotten that Nelson Mandela fought for the rights of his people until he was caught, okay? And when he was caught, he was convicted and sentenced to death. And Nelson Mandela, being the leader of the African National Congress, which was a resistance movement in South Africa, he gave a speech at the dock, which means in the court, when he was sentenced to die. And that man said that he has fought all his life for the ideals of freedom, inclusion, equality, and inclusion and democracy, basically, right? And he said these are ideals that he has risked his life for. And he also said, but if needs be, these are ideals that that man was willing to die for. And all that while he was locked up, African Americans, we put on our own resistance campaign. Not for ourselves, because this was after we dismantled the Jim Crow system in America, but when I was in college in the 80s, we did sit-ins, we did disinvestment marches, we had companies that did business with the country of South Africa to disinvest their belongings, their holdings. We basically broke the economic back of the international community to force this man to be free. So we did our part. At that time, African Americans and South Africans stood shoulder to shoulder, cheek by jowl. That means we were right next to each other. We were one, we were unified. And to see these people posting ridiculous negative stereotypes about each group is troubling to somebody who's been there, such as myself. Again, I'm Attorney Nassau. I studied in Cape Town, South Africa, at the University of Cape Town's Law School. Guguletu, I've been there. Khayelitsha, I've been there. Greenpoint, Sea Point, I've been all over that place. Cape Flats, I've been there. I know you. I've studied your law. I've studied your history. You know, I even know about your Afrikaans. Excuse me if I mispronounced that. I'm not South African. Okay? So the idea that you guys are fighting when our house in America is literally on fire, if you're an African American, is really troubling to me. The people that you should be uniting with, you're arguing with. They kicked out the ambassador to the South African ambassador to the United States because he said Trump's administration was racist. He got kicked out, okay? And the only Africans that they are allowing to come into this country are white South Africans. And y'all are fighting. And that breaks my heart. That breaks my heart. Well, Nelson Mandela is free and is probably enjoying his just rewards in heaven. But we're here fighting on the ground, and I'm hoping that you guys are not going to sit out this battle, because you are going to have some difficult days ahead of you. And I hope that you have the resolve that this man had. Again, this man spent 27 years in prison. And the funny thing is, the interesting thing is, the last 5 of them, they promised him freedom if he would just give up the fight against apartheid. His cell was unlocked. For 5 years, he refused to go free because he did not give up the fight. He refused to accept defeat. He refused to accept what these people were wanting him to do, which is to acknowledge that you are less than. And I hope that that is a lesson to many of you guys who are talking about sitting out this fight that we have. They're taking away your rights every day. They're firing people who are African American from top administration positions every day. So let's get ready. I hope you put aside your differences. I hope you understand that this battle is going to be a monster and you cannot afford to sit it out. Dirty South History.